These guys are the same champions that they've always been. There's a reason why they've won so many championships and they've been in the Final Four. And I'm sure they're going to come in here and they're going to bring a whole bunch of fans, and there's going to be two types of orange in the dome.
The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks.
What's up? What's up? Welcome into the award-winning Orange Zone podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, what's up from the Sky Cam? How you doing? If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, thank you for listening. A reminder, you can find every episode weekly on our brand new Orange Zone YouTube page. New episodes released every Wednesday. We invite you to like, comment, and subscribe. We are nearing in on 100 subscribers. Now, we helped CMI Central get past 14,000, but we're doing our own thing. We want it to be strictly SU content, so thank you for everyone that's hopped on board, and be sure to follow us on our all-new Instagram and TikTok page for more OZ content. I'm Tommy Sladek. We have Samantha Croston. We have James Mungro, and we have Brendan Hodges on the producer mic. Getting to what we're doing today. We will have the numbers, we have the data, and we have an in-depth preview for this Syracuse-Clemson game. We will also weave in our biggest takeaways from SU's win over Army. We have a twofer on guest today. Not one, two. Two awesome interviews. I chatted with Clemson's play-by-play broadcaster, Don Munson, the voice of the Tigers. He's been around this program for decades. I could have talked to him for truly hours. And Ashley Winskoski has a sit-down with Amanda Poole, a sports reporter from WACH News in the Midlands of South Carolina, who had a lot to say about what she's seen from this 2023 Tiger team. And, of course, later in the show, game predictions and producer Brendan's weekly trivia as he tries to stump the crew and the listeners. Syracuse football, 4-0, first time they've done that non-conference since they joined the conference in 1991. So a little bit of a first for everything this week. How are you two feeling?
I am feeling pretty electric. I mean, 4-0, we're going to talk more about this, of course, but I feel like 4-0 is exactly where everybody thought that this Syracuse team should be, and I'm feeling excited. The last time that Syracuse won against Clemson, it was at the Dome. We are back at the Dome now. I'm excited to see how this goes.
I would have to say the same. I think this game we've been waiting for, now it's here. It's the week of Clemson, homecoming as well, inside the Dome. It's going to be electrifying. The Dome is going to be rocking. It should be sold out. I think that's going to give us the big advantage in this game.
I mean, the last two seasons, right, this game has been decided by a touchdown or less. 2021, that was a low score, man. Neither team even hit 20 points. Last year, Syracuse hits 20-plus points before halftime, ends up you know, we know how those things went. It was just injury galore, and then Clemson, credit to them. A story that we're going to be getting to is Cade Klubnik ended up coming in, really making his debut for those Clemson fans in place of DJ Uiagalelei, who is now at Oregon State. Also, I just nailed that on a first try. Didn't even have to say DJ. Props to me. You know, everyone develops over 12 months, and that was one of my big things I've been working on. So that feels pretty good.
And remember last year when we were talking about him, you were like, I practiced this, I'm ready for it.
And then,
couldn't get it out.
You know what, the bad with that one. So it feels good. You know, that's season 2 with the Orange Zone. We're just back. We're ready for more. Now, Syracuse football, again, coming in at 4-0. They took down Army 29-16. They're coming in against Clemson, a 7-point underdog. Clemson, probably the best 2-2 team in the country. But first, let's get into a little bit of Army. 29-16, the score does not tell the full story.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that because the first half was very methodical. It was so slow. It was just – and we knew what Army was going to do. Mm-hmm. Get the ball and just grind it out, control the clock, and try to win at the very end. And, you know, the first half they were pretty successful accomplishing their goals. But then after that, the second half, Syracuse came to light and put in overdrive and scored on four consecutive possessions. So that's a credit to Syracuse. But, again, you have to start out fast. We had a couple things, one turnover. We had some takeaways, so we won in that battle. Time possession, we did not win that battle, but we didn't think we were going to win that because that's what Army does, hold the ball and just run it down and slow play everything. But this week is going to be very exciting. It's going to be very exciting to see two powerhouse teams go at it and see a lot more athletic ability out there on the field for both teams.
I mean, no doubt. And for me in week 4, I think it's important to highlight the why. Why did Syracuse win that game? And I truly believe the reason is because they showed in that game they're willing to make in-game adjustments. They were a completely different team in the second half. And Dino Babers had said in his press conference after the game, we changed one thing defensively, one thing, and the entire game was different after that. I truly believe this just from time playing, time watching football, and whatever else. I don't always think that the best teams are the ones with the most talent. I think they're the ones that are willing to make adjustments on the fly.
I would have to agree. I mean, you have to make adjustments. That's the coaching staff. That's what they're getting paid for. Make adjustments, and the players they have to listen and make those adjustments on the fly.
And they bought in.
Yes, they absolutely right.
And again, you said it was one adjustment, right? And it made all the difference in that. The thing that was so interesting about that first half, right, was because Syracuse's offense had a hard time finding the rhythm, but they weren't even given a chance to find the rhythm. It was Army holding on to the ball for 80% of the time. So for them to come out there in that third quarter and start to force those 3 and outs immediately, giving Syracuse, Garrett Schrader, the offense time to find their groove, it was over from there. And again, it was 29-10 late in the fourth quarter. You had second, even third string guys in when they had that goofy touchdown, but ultimately it's what ended up winning Army against a 13.5-point spread. So Sam is the only one still undefeated against the spread. James and I went down on that one. You and I, admittedly, we thought this was going to be a game reaching the 40s. I think it was a game that could have been that, but it was the pace of the game.
The pace of the game that was not. It was not going to get there. Yes, it wouldn't match up at all. Exactly right. It would have to be some interceptions, but even with that, it would be more on a turnover, a fumble or something like that, no more interception, but a turnover. But, give credit, give Syracuse credit. Like you said, they made the adjustments, and they came out and they continued to play. They were losing in the first half, and everybody still came together, stuck together as a team, believe what coaches are saying, buying in what they've been practicing. And, so what was that adjustment they made, Sam?
Do you know?
They wouldn't really fully go into detail.
I remember listening to the press conference and them not really saying a whole lot.
Didn't fully say it. They more so put it, Dino more so put it as communication. I think there was something there that if we really watched back to the second half, if it was just a placement of a defensive tackle, I don't know. It's
curious
so was I, and I wish that he would have said more about that. But regardless, to me, there's 2 parts to make that work at halftime. The coaches have to have that kind of backup plan, and the players have to listen, and both of those things happened.
It did. You're absolutely right. It really did. And, Schrader did a great job of throwing the ball, I thought.
21 for 26, man.
That's pretty
21
good.
for 26.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good. He adjusted really well, and I thought ultimately, he said after the game, because I asked about Damian Alford, who was the guy.
Yes.
He was the guy. He 9 catches, over 100 receiving yards. He goes, with our offense, we should be having a player every week with over 100. LaQuinn Allen got over 100 rushing. They're like, Allen could do it 100 rushing, 100 receiving. That's the type of player he is, and I think we're almost waiting to see him explode in that realm of the receiving. But if SU can get a receiver with 100-plus receiving yards every week, they're in pretty good shape.
And this is just a side note, but Damian Alford, I knew this from seeing him at the players' interviews weekly, but he is so long. I mean, on some of these catches, he got up,
He's a massive guy.
He's a monster, and you wouldn't think so because he has sort of a thin frame, but he's actually massive.
Oh, he's huge.
He's huge.
Yeah, he's a brick house, as they say, a giant refrigerator.
He's awesome.
Now, we're not the only podcast in the ACC right now talking about a 4-0 team. That's really interesting to me because when you really take a step back and look at this stuck out to me. We're going to get right into Clemson here and really dive into who this Tiger team is. But out of 21 programs that are still undefeated in the Power 5, right? This is coming straight from notes from my phone. This is something that really stuck out to me. 27 overall in FBS, 21 Power 5, 6 are from the ACC, 5 from the Pac-12, but 6 from the ACC. 2 conferences that coming into this season, there was a lot of chatter, a lot of chirping about where their status is in the Power 5. And from this ACC, from the Atlantic Coast Conference, you have Florida State, you have North Carolina, you have Duke, you have Miami, you have Louisville, and you have Syracuse. What does that number 6 mean to you both?
I mean, I think it just shows that the ACC conference and all of the teams that are in it are a bunch of dogs. Like, I feel like
Dog alert.
Dog alert, big
Put the
time dog
sirens out.
alert. And Dino Babers was even saying that. He's like, that's the reason why there are a lot of coaches here who end up moving to other big time conferences, is because I do feel that he believes, and I definitely believe, that the ACC is at times an underrated conference. Maybe they're not looked at the most, but I think the numbers show a lot here. And that's why this week 5 is so exciting to me. It's because we are now going to have one of these teams, or I guess Clemson is not one of the undefeated teams, but we're going to see what's going to happen with Syracuse. Can they stay undefeated, or is that number going to drop to 5 or even less?
And, they're focusing, like I said, this is a big week up here at Syracuse. This we've been waiting for the whole year. We're finally here. Homecoming, people's flying in, driving in all around the country coming to see this game. Clemson's going to bring their fans, obviously, as well.
You read my mind. I was just thinking that.
They're going to bring their fans because the atmosphere of the Dome is unbelievable. When, this type of big game. Last week against Army, it was, half filled pretty much.
Right.
This week it'll be sold out.
We'll see about that.
It should be it'll be sold out.
I will say this. There was a surprising amount of empty seats I saw on the charts on Monday. But as we know, Monday to Saturday is a lifetime when it comes to buying tickets. But it was SU Athletics was putting out a flash sale where it was some $40 tickets. So there's some room to spare.
Okay.
Why that is, does it have to do with the noon game? I don't know. I guess I expected it to be a little bit more aggressive coming in, and it also could just be that Clemson isn't ranked right now. But that's not to say they're not a very good team.
It's really not to say. You know what? And you even said this before, and I've heard this phrase thrown around a lot, but I have to say I agree with this 100%. I feel like Clemson is the best 2-2 team in the entire country. And how easily could that have been 4-0 or certainly 3-1?
They play really tough teams. I mean, the two teams they lost to are
ranked.
are very good teams, and they almost won the game last week against Florida State. So, I mean, Clemson is in a great spot. I mean, with 2 losses, their season is still at task, and our season's theirs too as well. So something has to break on Saturday. Either we get our first loss, or Clemson, we have 3 losses, and I'm going towards us being 5-0 when this is all said and done.
Little hint, predictions coming up later in the show, but it's this whole thing around Clemson's really fascinating. Just reading about the fan base, reading from what the fans are saying, what the reporters are saying. I even saw one article that said Clemson is in this form of purgatory right now because these late game moments that they have been so successful in for so many years, that has made them the juggernaut program that they are, is not going their way this year. And that is very uncharted territory for this fan base from the last 10 years. It's just not something that they're experiencing, is these heartbreaking losses coming down to a few plays. I'm going to bring in Brendan Hodges. I'm going to bring in one of our numbers guys. Brendan, what is this 2-2 team what is it about this team that do you think has landed them here, and do you think they're just a few plays away from easily being back in the top 10 should they have been 4-0 in this situation, which they are not?
I won't say top 10. I'd say that they outplayed Duke and Florida State for the majority of those 2 games. If you take away red zone turnovers, of which I believe Clemson had 2 against Duke, they only lost that turnover battle by 1. They turned Duke over. They were keeping them at bay, and then it just got away from them at the end. And Florida State, it just came down to, again, they dominated yardage, first downs, time of possession. They only had 1 turnover, and Florida State didn't turn the ball over to their credit. But they were within a 30-yard field goal of taking the lead with 5 minutes left in that game and potentially upsetting Florida State. This isn't the great Clemson teams of, I say old, of the past, probably 10 years, I'd say, is how long this Clemson dynasty, if you'd like to put it, has lasted. It's not one of those great teams, but it's still one of the top 3 teams, arguably, in the ACC. It's just they ran into problems at Duke, and they ran into problems against a Florida State team that is to par with them, at least in this year, 2023.
And I can honestly see them throwing everything at us. I mean, everything at them, because they don't want to, have 3 losses on their schedule, and I would imagine every little trick play, whatever they have going, they're going to use everything they have to use.
This is a team that I used 3 words in an article I put up today about just what to expect. They are mad, probably, about how things have gone, determined to fix it, and desperate to fix it. Because if they don't, then their entire maybe not reputation, but just like everything they've put into this program over the last 10 years, is at risk of being like kind of not forgotten, but like pushed by the wayside. And like, this is a bad season. We need maybe not overarching changes, but a real hard look in the mirror as to how we do things.
Right. You almost wonder what would have happened. Like, I feel like you're thinking the same thing. Like, you almost wish they won last week. You know what I mean? Because now it's going to be a totally different. Listen, you're 2-2.
Yes.
Everything is coming at Syracuse now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, Syracuse will be prepared. I mean, the coaches haven't prepared, and the guys are prepared. I mean, the guys are – I could just kind of – just thinking back, big games like this is a great week. This is a great week. It's homecoming. I mean, you have great weather up here in September in Syracuse, New York. I mean, it's just a totally football atmosphere, and it's end of September, and it's like going into October, playing Clemson. And what else could you ask for? This is when you go to college, you want to play big games, and this is a big game for the guys.
And you take out 2019 and 2020, which were blowouts in Clemson's favor. Historically, it's just there's something in the water with this game, right? And a part of it was when they got the win 5-6 years ago. The last 2 years decided by a touchdown. I went back and really watched that game from last year and almost forgotten how that game finished with Syracuse marching down the field.
Yeah.
And it ended with Clemson coming up with a massive interception on a throw attempt to Garrett Schrader. But they were moving. They were a few steps away from not just being 7-0, but at that point they were 14 in the country. They would have slid into the top 10. It would have been Notre Dame the next week. You probably maybe would have had College game day in town. Little plays mean so much. Little moments mean so much in college sports, and we're seeing the perfect example of that being Syracuse and Clemson fan bases have experienced both.
Absolutely. I mean, when you talk about little moments, the first thing that comes to my mind is several of those game-changing penalties last year. Those are little moments that I feel like altered the course of the season. There's just so much history between these two teams, and I'm so amped to get into this preview. Talk about it a little more.
But it's a history that Clemson has largely dominated.
Yes.
It's been one Syracuse win, but it doesn't feel like that, right?
You're
it
right.
doesn't, but you know something? I'm not big on history at all. I'm just not.
James a forward thinker.
He's Mr. Right Now.
No, listen. I love history. Love some history, but with football history, I throw it out the window.
And the audience wonders why me and James don't get along.
He's a historian.
I know. I do. I like history with different things, but with football, throw it out the window because
you know what history he doesn't like? Syracuse losing history. That's not history that he's interested in.
But the point I'm saying is this: Syracuse has a different team from last year. Mm-hmm. Clemson has totally a different team from last year. Okay, so throw the history out. It's a new year, new guys on the team, new coaches, new defense. Let's start. It's a new year.
All right.
So these
I
guys,
respect that. Yeah, absolutely.
Whatever happened the past 5 years, who cares?
Preacher James.
What I
Mungro.
care about is Saturday, 12 o'clock. They're going to kick that ball off. We're going to catch it. Or someone's going to catch it or fumble it. But the game will be started at 12 o'clock, and we'll know who's going to be a winner, who won that game by 4:30. Okay, and hopefully we do the necessary things correctly to get that W, and I think we're going to be able to do that as well.
Fair enough. Let's forget the past, but let's get into this season. Is that cool? Let's do the last few weeks because there's some numbers and there's some players that stand out. And one of the biggest stories right now is Cade Klubnik. Came in for DJ Uyunglele in the game last year, helping the Tigers come back to win that game over SU. DJU now with Oregon State. And here's just a few stats I want to run by you. Garrett Schrader QBR, so total quarterback rating that's adjusted for the strength of opposing defenses. He's coming in right now at 16th in the country with an 82.3. Cade Klubnik, again, who's a sophomore. Garrett Schrader, we know, super senior. Klubnik is in at 90th with a 46.8. But you look at both Schrader and Klubnik, what do they have in common? A 66% completion rate. Schrader is a hair above that, but it does help tell the story of two quarterbacks, and I'll be getting into this with Don Munson in a little bit here, but Klubnik is a very different player than what Syracuse fans saw last year. Is he perfect right now? No. He had a 3rd and 1 almost RPO decision where he went for a wide receiver screen pass instead of running the ball in overtime. That is going to haunt Tiger fans all this week. Yeah. I know that for certain, but he has grown, and the players that we spoke with earlier today, Marlo Wax, Elijah Clark, they all really respect what they've seen from Klubnik.
I mean, I believe it because you also have to remember the fact that Klubnik entered the game against Syracuse last year and led them to that come-from-behind win. So, of course, that's going to be fresh on their minds.
Moment.
Not to mention, the fact that he is a sophomore is really astonishing to me.
Yeah. He has a great future, a bright future ahead of him. But, one thing when you talk about both quarterbacks, for myself, their yardage are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
With all the stats, with Clemson stats, rushing, passing, rushing, it's very similar to Syracuse stats. All the skill positions have very similar numbers. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But what I'm really excited about, is defensive lineman. Number 90, the walk-on. Mm-hmm. I like him. He's a baller. He's a baller. He's a go-getter. And I think the defensive line is going to play a big part, putting pressure on him, on the quarterback, to get these turnovers we need, like we've been getting every single week.
They're massive. And again, I spoke with some linebackers in secondary, but they were very much giving them a lot of credit to what they were able to do against Army. And again, you have Darton up there. You have Tyler Lockett, who goes by T-Lock. You have, of course, Caleb Okechukwu that has been around this program, but it's been some of these other guys that have stepped in. Kevin Jobity. You also have Dennis Jaquez, who I've been wanting to say Yaquez for the longest time. Jaquez, it sounds great. I love it. So they're going to play a massive role. Switch the page to Clemson's defensive line. They had a few guys go to the NFL, and it's the young players that are really stepping up. Again, speaking with the Clemson side of things, they really, really like TJ Parker, who's a true freshman. And it's a reminder, again, you also have, who else is on here?
Tyler Davis,
Peter Woods. You have to remember that even though Clemson's 2-2, nothing has changed in terms of them getting some of the best players in the country, right? It's still insane talent coming in.
100%. I was thinking the same thing when I was reading up on them. In my head, I think even though there are some guys who are on the younger side or a little bit newer, this is a team that pretty much has all of the pieces besides kicker. I feel like they do have a little bit of a special teams problem. And I just want to say one thing, just for any of our Clemson fans who are listening, I do not think that it is fair to blame the loss last week on one kick. However, I think that matters, and I think special teams matters.
I'm going to bite my tongue on that because it's going to come into my game prediction. But, Brendan, you want to give the viewers a little background on this kicking situation? Because, James, I don't know if you've heard about this yet. This is really fascinating because my man, the kicker right now, was about to be wearing a collared shirt like you and me are wearing in New York City in a week and a half, starting a new job, and instead he's back on that football team.
Yeah, he was a kicker that previously played for Clemson. Obviously, we know B.T. Potter was there he was like the Perry Ellis of Clemson football, just there forever. COVID played into that, obviously. Jonathan White was, I guess, a backup kicker on the team. Took the job in New York City, and then their kicker, what's his name, Tommy? It's escaping me.
Robert Gunn the
third was missing field goals. I think he did 1 for 4 in the season. And Dabo calls up Jonathan White. He's like, "Hey, Johnny, what do you say you come kick for us in this game against Florida State? Come back for another year."
Isn't that crazy?
And it's important that he was doing his
Isn't that crazy?
He was doing his online masters from his hometown.
Okay.
And so he really wasn't around the team, but he decided to hang it up the football. And they bring him back once he learned that he was still doing some sort of online class. So this job in New York is going to have to get delayed.
Get to the game, makes his first kick. Everybody's going crazy. They're like, "Oh, my God, Jonathan White, we have a kicker." That was his first field goal attempt of the game. Damn.
Like absolute hero.
Wow.
5 minutes left in the game. I believe the game is tied at this point. 29-yard field goal. Jonathan White trudges onto the field. And I think that Tommy had pulled up a tweet when we were talking about this earlier today that there's one play Dabo Swinney regretted or was looking back on in this game.
3rd and 1.
And
yep.
It was that, but also taking a shot on 1st and 2nd down.
Not taking a shot, yeah.
They didn't, and he said looking back on that, it's something he regretted from that game. White's misses the field goal, 29 yards. Game goes to OT. Obviously, we know how the game ends with Florida State scoring, Clemson unable to answer, and Florida State escapes and remains undefeated in Death Valley. So feel bad for Jonathan White, but I would expect him to be the starting kicker because I use the rookie kicker analogy, James, I feel like every rookie kicker in the NFL misses their first field goal because you haven't been in that moment.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then you make your next 10, and you're like, this is easy.
Well,
You had Vinatieri the whole time you were there, right?
No. We had we had Mike Vanderjack.
Oh, Mike Vanderjack.
The drunken Canadian. You don't remember that?
And then McAfee came in punting just a few years after you, right?
Me, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know McAfee at all. I just know.
You would have been cool with him.
Yeah,
I know you would have been.
He seems pretty interesting.
Yeah, good energy. And rarely do you have like a punter of that type of play style too.
Well, our kicker was like that. Mike Vanderjack was very outspoken, and he
wasn't the quiet guy, right?
No, he was not quiet at all.
Didn't he make Peyton mad for some reason?
That's what I just made that comment about the drunken Canadian. That's what Peyton said, and they both got fined for that.
There was an old punter there too that I thought was like Hunter something.
Hunter Smith.
Yeah,
great guy.
I may be mixing up the two then.
All right, should we get back on track?
Yeah, let's get back on track.
Yeah. We have those tangents. When you have an NFL running back that sits at the table with you, sometimes you get carried away, and that's okay. So thank you for that, James.
Canadians aside, I still believe in Jonathan White, and I have to say that is a really tough position to be in. He did the best he could. I'm not giving up yet.
All right. Well, you know what? We hit a little bit on this Clemson team. We talked to two people that follow this team week in and week out and loved both of these interviews. And we're going to start right now with Don Munson. He's the voice of the Tigers. He's been in this role now his 10th year, but he's been around this program for a few decades. And I decided to go a little bit more with the bigger picture. This is uncharted territory for Clemson fans with this 2-2 team. Why he thinks this team is 2-2, the players that we should be looking out for. Here's Don Munson. Hey, everybody. We're joined right now by a very special guest. It's Don Munson. It's the voice of the Clemson Tigers. And, Don, we're gearing up for a big game here in the 315 in Central New York. How are you feeling? And just what's your overall feel as you head into this game? What is Syracuse and Clemson to you, this matchup?
Well, I mean, obviously, first and foremost, thanks for having me on. Certainly appreciate you being on with you. You know, obviously we come rolling in. Syracuse is undefeated. They sit there at 4-0. There's not that many teams now in America that are sitting there 4-0 or undefeated. So I think if you're a Syracuse fan, you're excited about that. Dino Babers has been here before. Syracuse has obviously knocked off Clemson before in that building. Clemson, for whatever reasons, has had some bugaboos when they travel to not far from the banks of Lake Ontario. But, I think that Clemson will come rolling in there. They're one of the, there's just Clemson and Florida State, I think, that are both top 10 in offense and defense in the country. So, but Clemson sits there 2-2. So they found ways, unfortunately, to lose a couple of ball games through some kind of strange circumstances. But we'll see if we can come right the ship, coming off of obviously a heartbreaking loss to Florida State in overtime, 31-24.
And to give our viewers and listeners a little bit of background, could you just tell us a little bit about how you got involved in Clemson football and what's kept you doing it for so long?
Well, this is my 30th year of covering Clemson. So I showed up here in 94 was my first year. And the way I got here was that the Clemson folks heard me actually call a football game in 93 and called me and asked me if I would be interested in coming to work for their network. At that time, it wasn't as a play-by-play job. The legendary Jim Phillips was here, and so he was right in the middle of his run. But I did come on board, and I hosted pregame, halftime, and postgame for him, and so that's how I got my start with Clemson. That was in '94. Then I moved here full time in '95 as the network rights switched hands, and the guy that was running the network had also been part of the previous regime, and he called me in and asked me if I wanted to be part of it, and I came down here and so was part of operations manager for the network for a period of time, and then also one of the on-air folks, and then went to work actually for Clemson in 2010. Went to work for Coach Sweeney in 2010 as part of his staff, as his support staff. And when we had a change in athletic directors I guess it was in 13, he came to me and asked me if I would be interested in moving into the director of broadcasting position here at Clemson. And I said, absolutely. And so my first year was in 14 calling football games, although I've been calling baseball games and other things prior to that. But it's been an awesome run for me, man. I've only seen us lose at home 3 times, 61-3, I think, at home. now, and two of those home losses have been in our last 4 games at home. So it's been an amazing run, and obviously the national championships and all that. So been very, very blessed.
I mean, 61-3, that's insane when you truly take a step back and look at it. And you, like you mentioned, Don, 2 of those have been this season, this 2-2 Clemson team that I like to think is the best 500 team in the country. But it's interesting reading everything coming out of just the media right now, because it feels like it's a different place for this fan base right now. They're seeing a team that they know can compete, but isn't getting it done at the end of the game. What's your ultimate take on why this team is 2-2?
I think that's a good question, and I don't know, exactly. Sometimes things just even out. Sometimes you're going to learn this as you get older. I'm 61 now, and so I will tell you that some things just kind of balance out. When Clemson was winning all those games and going to national championships, started with that first national championship game in 15, lose that game, but then get right back in 16, go to the semifinals in 17, play for the national championship and win it in 18, play for a national championship, lose to LSU in 19. You start making those runs and things just have a tendency to bounce your way, to go your way. So here lately, the ball's been bouncing a little bit against them. And when Clemson has had turnovers, it hasn't just been turnovers. It's been like catastrophic turnovers. And we saw that obviously last week at Florida State. Klubnik gets sacked, ball bounces loose, and the guy that caused the sack picks it up, takes it 56 the opposite way for what turned to be the tying touchdown. And so, sometimes you just have to shake your head a little bit. But the Clemson fan base is kind of like all of us. We're a little spoiled. I mean, we are. You make a run like Clemson has been on, where you've won 10 games for 12 years in a row. So only Alabama has a better stretch of that, by the way. They've won 15 in a row. And then tied for third is 8 teams with just back-to-back 10-win seasons. So I'm talking about just winning 10 games. I'm not talking about, extraordinary years, as 10 games used to be an extraordinary year. Now it's, all right, that's pretty good. But, I mean, we're talking 10 games each year for 12 consecutive seasons. So we've been in that run. Clemson trying to make another run to make it to the 13. You get spoiled. I mean, you just do. And so some of the fan base, I think, is turning to a little bit of a younger fan base. And so some of that latched on to Clemson when all this was going on, they haven't been through this. And so they'd light up social media sites and all that kind of stuff, and away you go. But we'll be all right. Clemson will be just fine. They'll figure out a way to get this turned around. There's too much talent, both on the coaching staff and also on that playing field, for it not to get turned around.
And I know Syracuse plays a part in the story for Cade Klubnik. And you look back at this game between Syracuse and Clemson last year. The Orange were feeling pretty good going up at halftime. Tigers end up turning that thing around and getting a big win there in Death Valley. How have you seen his growth as a quarterback? And when we're showing this to the Syracuse fans, do you think they're looking at a different quarterback than the one they saw last year?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt that they're looking at a different quarterback. And we're watching a young man that's growing up right in front of our eyes. Now, he's still a sophomore, all right? So there's still a lot of pup that's in him. There's still a lot of pup. I mean, he's going to do some silly things from time to time. But you go back and you look at your own quarterback, Schrader. Watch just what was he 2 years ago compared to what he is now? It just totally, vastly different. And so that's part of what we're seeing is the maturation process of Klubnik, and he's getting better and better. He's coming off undoubtedly the best game ever in his Clemson career against Florida State. He was magnificent against Florida State. It turned out that a back didn't pick up the blitzing corner, who came a long way, by the way, to get there and knock the ball loose. Actually, it was a linebacker that came a long way and knocked it loose and then picked it up and took it. But so, sometimes it's not always in the quarterback. It's 11 men on the field. 11 guys have a job to do. Do your job. Don't do somebody else's job. Just do your job and expect the guy beside you to do his. And but Klubnik is going to be, I think before it's all said and done, he's going to be a pretty special player.
Klubnik, Will Shipley, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and growing up an Eagles fan, love seeing the success of all these former stars, their kids doing their big things. Who's a player that Syracuse fans, right on paper, they see those big names?
Who's the name that's sticking out to you right now that's not amongst the most popular faces right now?
Oh, I think it's probably a freshman defensive end, number 12, TJ Parker. I mean, he has shown up just consistently, and that was from the Duke game on. And he's not starting for us. So you got Xavier Thomas, number 3, starting at one defensive end. Justin Maskell, the 5th year, maybe 6th year senior now, that is starting at the other defensive end. But this young guy, TJ Parker, 12, I'm just telling you, he will make an impact. He knows. I mean, his motor is always running. He's going to get probably, say Clemson has 70 to 80 snaps that they have to defend in the game. Then Parker's probably going to get around 25 to 30 of those snaps. So he's going to have plenty of time out there on the field to show you what he's all about. But Parker would be a guy I think that you would just have to look for. And all of a sudden, if you're a Syracuse fan with all these other names, you go, where did that guy come from? And why do we have to face him for the next 2 or 3 years?
Well, now they know, right? They won't be as caught off guard. That's the beauty of this podcast. And Don, I wish I could talk to you for 2 hours, man. This has been great. I'll leave you with one more before we let you go. Clemson seeing right now around a touchdown favorite. Last 2 seasons or last 2 matchups have been decided by a touchdown or less. Could you see that happening again on Saturday?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Matter of fact, I'd be shocked if it doesn't happen that way on Saturday. This isn't, the Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins team that came in there and just, rolled over Syracuse all those years ago. It's not a Trevor Lawrence led team that rolled, there in the Dome. So it's not that kind of team. There's not that explosive wide receiver that is on this ball club. There's really not that explosive running back that at just any time can take it the distance. ETN's not walking into the building. So Syracuse fans doesn't have to worry about that. Now we've got good running backs. Shipley and Maffa are certainly really good running backs, and we've got pretty decent wide receivers, but we just don't have that really explosive guy. So yeah, I'd be a little shocked if it's not a 1-score kind of game that decides this thing on Saturday.
Awesome. Well, Don Munson, voice of the Clemson Tigers, play-by-play. Thank you so much for coming on. Any final thoughts, Don?
So often when I do this, I'm talking Syracuse fans off the ledge. Hang in. You're 4-0. You should show up. It should be sold out. You should come with a little hate in your veins for the other team in orange. All right. You don't have to show Southern hospitality. We're coming north. So you should take care of it, but get out there, support your ball club, create the atmosphere that we've known, that we have seen before in that building, and expecting a good one for the 12 noon kickoff.
Well, we appreciate Don making the time. Looking forward to hopefully seeing him at the Dome on Saturday and catching up in person. As for this Clemson team and the real details of 2023 and what we've seen through the first few weeks, we decided to go in depth. Ashley Winskowski interviews Amanda Poole with WACH Fox in the Midlands of South Carolina. I know my regions now, so we'll toss it out to Ashley.
Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast, everyone. I'm Ashley Winskowski here with Amanda Poole of WACH Fox in Columbia, South Carolina. We're going to be talking Clemson-Syracuse football ahead of this weekend's matchup. So, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I love talking football this time of the year.
Nothing like it. So, let's get into Clemson. 2-2 record going into this game against Syracuse. What are some of your takeaways for the Tigers from the first 4 weeks of football?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, or I'll sound like Dabo Sweeney. This team has shown so much potential, but it's these critical turnovers. I mean, turnovers have been the storyline of the season so far, especially after game 1, Duke. I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong for this team. I feel like it's one of those like dad jokes where they're like, it's hot, but like it's so much hotter because of the humidity. It's like, they're a good team, but they look awful because of these critical turnovers. And it's not just where they fumble the ball. It's a scoop and score or a pick 6, where these are super costly turnovers that change the entire momentum of the game. You look at a game like Florida State just on Saturday, where everything was going right for them. They had the entire game in control. And then Cade Klubnik, a missed blocker, fumbles the ball, scoop and score. And from there, they just couldn't get back. It came down to one play. So that's been the storyline this season, which has been just like gut wrenching for this Tiger team. But if they can clean those turnovers up, they're in this ball game easily.
Right. So I want to talk about those two big losses, Duke and Florida State. I know Duke was something a lot of people weren't expecting. Clemson was favored in that game. Do you think the fan base has kind of had the wind taken out of their sails by those two games, or how do you think people are feeling?
I think confidence has definitely been shaky because of, Kate Klubnik is very young. We've got a new offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley. There's a lot of what we thought was going to happen, the hype building up to this season, and then seeing that not play the way we thought it was going to. I think Clemson fans are kind of like, hey, wait, we thought this was going to be an air raid style offense. We thought there was going to be these huge passes, and obviously they thought they were going to be winning. So I do think there's been a hit to some confidence levels, but then again, Clemson leads the ACC in defense. They lead in first downs. They've had these huge offensive games where they're, beating other teams in every category, yet they don't come up with the win. So although we're not getting the wins, Clemson fans, the loss means more than, okay, we're still doing good on offense. It's fine. But people want the results.
Right. Now, Florida State, obviously one of the best teams in all of college football this season, let alone the ACC. So your takeaway, obviously Clemson took them to overtime. Do you think you saw more positives in that game than negatives?
I am a glass full type of gal, so I am going to take away the positives. Like I said before, they've been beating their teams in almost every category besides the turnover margin. And that's something that Coach Sweeney had prioritized and emphasized headed into this matchup. Is we're not going to beat this team if we lose the turnover margin, and that's exactly what happened. So I think their coaching staff and that team has confidence that they can beat anybody when they do win that turnover margin. So biggest takeaways was they know it needs to be done. It's just a matter of doing it.
Right. Now, you mentioned your quarterback, Cade Klubnik. You said he's very young. What do you think has been not necessarily the problem for him, but do you feel like he's being limited and being asked to do too much? Or what do you feel like is not connecting there?
The last game, the O-line has been a question mark throughout this season. And that's something that Dabo said. I don't know why people are questioning this. We have a solid O-line, but when you look at the O-line, there's only one senior there. So you have an inexperienced quarterback, and then you have not the most experienced offensive line protecting him. So I think he is definitely rushed, but quarterbacks are supposed to be able to handle that pressure. And he only was sacked once, and that was that scoop and score last Saturday. So I think it's just a matter of he needs to get more games in, more reps in, and so does that O-line. And as they get more experience, they'll be better. It's just that these first couple games haven't been the easiest. You've gone up against Duke, gone up against the number 4 team in the country, FSU. So they're being tested out of the gate very quickly. So that means that people are kind of judging them a lot more critically now. I think it's just experience, getting more comfortable. Speaking with Cade after each game, he's very mature. When you talk to him, he's like, I know what needs to be done. I'm proud of my guys. I do this, I do that. It sounds like he's been doing this for such a long time. And I think that's good in a quarterback, but it's just got to build those reps up.
Absolutely. Now, this game, obviously last year, the Clemson-Syracuse game was right down to the wire. It was a good one. So do you think that makes this game even more compelling this year? And how do you think the Tigers, with that 2-2 record, how do you think they're viewing this game going into it?
A battle. They talk about every week is a battle, no matter who you face, whether it's Charleston, Southern, or FAU, or Syracuse. They talk about it being a battle, especially when you go to Syracuse. It's a very tough environment, as you know,
right,
to play up there. So they're going to have their hands full, especially with your guys' quarterback. Schrader is insane, and that's going to be a challenge. But you do have a Clemson defense that's one of the best in the nation, and they're playing like it, especially in that second half against FSU. I think they allowed 1 rushing yard in that second half, and for the whole game, only 22 rushing yards for Florida State. And that's incredible considering how explosive FSU's offense has been. So the defense is ready to take on the Orange. I think it's just a matter of if the offense can carry the team as well.
What are the keys to the game for Clemson, in your opinion, if they're going to win against Syracuse?
Don't think you can stop Schrader, but you can contain him. And I think that's going to be big for Clemson. And also, not only are they going to hopefully stop the turnovers but force them more. The defense is so good, so why aren't they profiting from that? I mean, Nate Wiggins with his, pick six in the first game. It's just, you have to think that if the defense is that disruptive, they should be helping score a little bit. So if they can get a turnover on defense, they can force one on defense, I think they're going to be good, because defense sets the tone for this team. So that'll be one of the big keys to this game. Lower their turnovers and force more.
It's always a recipe for success. Last couple of questions. Clemson wise, what is your floor and ceiling for the Tigers this season overall?
Good question. Okay, the floor, I do feel like they're at their lowest. I feel like 2-2, 0-2 in the ACC. This is their lowest. Hopefully for Dabo Swinney and Clemson fans, they can only go up from here. They do have a tough road ahead because of how competitive this conference is this season, and how competitive they're getting. These are some insane quarterbacks in this league. And so hopefully this is their low for Tiger fans. And then from here, they can just keep moving up, lower those turnovers. I mean, these games, Dabo Swinney is calling the weirdest games of his coaching career, that like everything going right and then just one play or one turnover here. So it's just a matter of cleaning up those things. And then from there, they're explosive. They can do great things, but they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. So the ceiling is as high as it can be if they don't turn the ball over.
They just got to get out of their own way.
Exactly.
That's all right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and great insight into Clemson. I'm sure Syracuse fans will really appreciate it.
All right. Awesome interview with Amanda there by Ashley Wenskowski. And again, the Clemson reporters, the Clemson fan base, they live and breathe the Tigers. This area lives and breathes the orange. It's orange on orange. So that's going to be fun Saturday, is really, and Dino Babers talked about it. He's like, there's going to be a lot of orange. Hopefully it's a little bit more hours than theirs. Sam will be in the press box. James normally would be going to this game.
Yes.
But you're not.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, I won't be at the game.
I was going to say, what's Junior going to say about that?
But I'll be going to my son's soccer game at 12 o'clock.
Shout out to West Jenny Wildcats, man. They have a good team.
Yeah.
They have a good team.
And ironic part about the whole situation is my wife went to Syracuse, was in a sorority. She got probably like 15 of her girlfriends flying in and all around the country coming into the game to finally see each other. In the past 20 years, they haven't seen each other. So she'll be at the Clemson game while I'll be having the Clemson game on my phone and my earpiece in my ear and watching a great soccer game. So
the former all-time running back's going to be at the soccer game.
I'll be at a soccer game.
The sorority girl's going to be at the game.
That's the only time I'll, miss a game, a Syracuse game is, my son trumps it.
I like that, though. Dad of the week. And she'll be representing House Mungro. It all works out.
And you know what? You have this program forever. You only got he's a senior right now, right?
Yeah, he's senior, only a few more games left, so I got to take everything I possibly could take in.
Yeah, so you'll be doing some soccer watching, but I mean, as long as you have some 5G going there on the bleachers,
I'll have the game in my ear and my eyes on the game, the soccer game.
It's at what? Where, Auburn, right?
Yes, it is in Auburn. Yes.
I was talking to you about this earlier, but have you decided? Because this is an interesting situation, and leave a comment if you're thinking James should go one way or the other. The game's at noon for soccer.
I know where James is going.
If it goes quickly, you're looking at maybe like 1:30 finish, 1:45. The Auburn drive back home.
I've been thinking about it, Tommy.
Like half hour, or do you get out of that game, get in the car and you try to hit a bar right there in Auburn?
Well, I got to pick my son up from the game.
Oh yeah,
at the high school.
At the high school. So you're definitely. So I would say probably.
Or
going back home
or you can get a ride now. And I don't live that far. He could walk.
He could. So I should be like 8 miles.
Son, good game. Walk home.
Yeah. Well, I guess something. To be honest, I guess it depends on the score. The way I'm going to be. So he may have to walk.
Right. Well,
your ride depends on the score.
Yeah. We're going to find out and put out 2 fan poll questions. That's going to lead us right into our game predictions here. The first one, which was one that we put out yesterday. Another week, another poll. Which non-conference win taught you the most about the 2023 Syracuse football team? The win over Colgate, the win over Western Michigan, the win over Purdue, or the win over Army? Colgate and Western Michigan, 4% each. And tied up, Purdue and Army, 46% each.
I love that.
Which game for you guys?
I would have to say Purdue was harder, just because it was an away game, a hostile environment. the guys came through and won together collectively. I mean, both games were different. One was away, and in the Army game, it was more figuring out what Army's going to do, and it's going to take adjusting and taking. It takes it seriously too. Unfortunately, it took a whole half, but we got it right. In the second half, they corrected and made the adjustments, and they did it, and they won the game. So I'd say both games had totally different attitudes, but altogether, I think Purdue showed the most out of Syracuse of being down and coming back and going through some obstacles and penalties and stuff like that. What I was impressed about, I didn't talk about, was Army had 1 penalty. We had 6 penalties. So we have to cut that out with the penalties. Again, we have to do something with the penalties. They're getting better. They didn't have 10 from the week before, but hopefully this week we'll be down to single digits.
Yeah, one thing about Army, really, really disciplined team.
They're their Army.
They're in the there's a reason for that. Yeah. So that's definitely something to learn. But I'll keep it short. I'm rocking with James on this one, simply because I was shooting that game, sold out game, electric crowd, rocking atmosphere. So to be able to overcome that showed me a lot about this team.
I third it. I completely agree with you guys. Second question, which is going to tie right into our game predictions. Fan poll, the Syracuse-Clemson game will be decided by 63%. Oh, the options here. Sorry. 6 or less points, 7 or more points. If you guys had to guess, what would you say our listeners voted in favor of? One was 63%, one was 37%.
63% are saying this game is going to be decided by 7 points or less.
6 points or less.
6 points or less.
Both agree?
I would agree on that.
Come on, rock with me on this.
Okay, you guys nailed it.
That's right.
Spread's at 7, so I figured that would be a good place to put it. But that feels about on the money. That feels about on the money, especially the last 2 seasons last 2 years have gone like that. So it's kind of like, why wouldn't this one? So I'll open it up to you guys. It's game predictions. And again, right now, everyone's 4-0 or 3-0. Sam was sick last week, but she's back.
Yeah, sick of you.
But Sam, I'm just going to wipe a tear out of my eye. Against the spread, though, James and I took an L there. Sam stays unbeaten. Who wants to go first in this one?
I'm ready. Put me in, coach.
Go for it.
I say this every week. I'm going to say it again this week. Until I have a reason to bet against Syracuse, I'm betting for Syracuse. I'm betting on Syracuse. And this week, I am going to do – I really don't even know exactly this week a lot of the betting odds and the spread. And you know what? I decided I don't really need to know.
Okay, fair enough.
I am going to base my prediction off of the 2017 win here. And as a tribute, that game, I'm sure everybody remembers – was a 27-24 upset. It's the last time they won. It happened in Syracuse. I think that history is going to repeat itself. 27-24, Syracuse.
But I wouldn't call it. I'll go second, but.
She just did the Travis Kelce there, but I don't even know if you can call it Travis Kelce.
I know. Did anybody just see my bow and arrow celebration?
A lot of people do the bow and arrow.
I think, going into this game, I think it's going to be a very close game. I believe it's going to be within a touchdown or so. Mm-hmm. But I do believe what you were saying about what's the word you use? Not comeback, underdog or Syracuse. I don't consider Syracuse the underdog in this game. They're 4-0.
No, I just said it's going to repeat history. But I hear you. Let it cook.
Yeah, I'm not going in this game as we're an underdog. I'm going in as we're the dog to beat. Mm-hmm. So with saying that, I think the score is going to be very close. I think it's going to be. We're getting our prediction right with numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's going to be like 28-20.
28-20. Syracuse winning it.
Yeah.
Sam is 27-24. Syracuse winning it. I don't want to do the college game day clean sweep.
I'm sorry.
It's kind of a kiss of death.
Let me.
You want to backtrack a bit?
Yeah.
All right.
28-21. 28-21.
28-21.
You can't push. Are you kidding me?
Why not?
Pushing's fine. Pushing's fine. You get your money back.
You know something too.
First of all, James also said that he didn't consider Syracuse an underdog going into this game last year. I should make.
Well,
mention
that
of
looked
it looked
pretty
true
good
at first.
I mean, that's what I felt in my heart.
I just think he's scared to take one side or the other.
He just gave you. He has a 7-point dog winning by 7 points.
I hear you, but it's just like, you know.
Also, that would not. He would not push.
We're not getting involved in all these fights.
Listen, he would only push if Syracuse lost by 7 points.
To my credit,
that's a good point. I'm not a bettor, so I don't.
Okay, to my credit, I don't even care about the spread. I don't care about the spread. I don't care about the numbers. I care about one thing, and that's called a W.
So I'm also I already wrote your score down in pens. So are you choosing one? So which one are you choosing?
Get the eraser and erase it and rewrite it. Rewrite it.
Well, what are you going with?
28-21.
Okay.
Lock it in.
Lock it in.
Tommy.
Okay. So this one to me, man, I've had a tough time with this one. I really have. But I go back to two things. One of them is pride. Beginning of the season, I predicted a 9-3 year. I also predicted a 5-0 start. So I'm holding on to that.
And you did that boldly.
I'm holding on to that. It was bold at the time. It ain't looking as bold right now. So watch out. We'll see. I'm holding on to that W in this one. I think it stays a one-possession game down to the final wire. I can't see these two teams playing each other any other way these past few years. The edge to me is going to come down to the kicking game. I believe field goals are going to be taken by both teams. And while Syracuse and Clemson has both had a kicker that has missed an extra point, it's not this 100% lock-in, you have a future NFLer on your hands here. But Brady Denenberg has the edge over the situation you have in the Clemson guys right now. So I'm going with 21-20 Syracuse. Could I see that as being 2 Clemson touchdowns and 2 field goals? Maybe. Could I see that as being 3 Clemson touchdowns and a missed extra point? Maybe. But it's going to come down to a field goal to me, and I'm giving the edge to the team that has the edge with the kicker. I'm going with Syracuse. When you really break down these two teams right now, I think Garrett Schrader's humming even without Arondé Gadsden, even without Isaiah Jones. His receiving core, someone is going to step up. I like what the offensive line has done in the plug and play, the injuries they've recovered. Joe Moore seems to be back. We could be seeing him out there, but Bradford and some of these guys that have stepped in have shown me a lot. I don't think this Clemson team is bad at all. In fact, I think they're going to have some really big offensive moments that's going to test this defense. You look at their weapons. It's aplenty. Will Shipley got the best of SU at the end of last season. Will Maffa. They've really been splitting the load, so you really have fresh legs coming in there, down in and down out. But the edge in this one, outside of the kicking game, is going to be the Syracuse defense. They're going to help win this game. They're going to come up with a big turnover, and SU is moving to 5-0, and this Clemson team, in a shocking way, is going to be 2-3, and people are going to be saying, how is this team 2-3? Because I think they are so talented.
They play tough teams. I mean, it's very easily. I mean, Duke beat them, Florida State, and now Syracuse.
And Garrett Schrader's leadership, I think that's going to play a huge role too.
In the Dome, I think the Dome as well is going to be ultimately the deciding factor. I think playing inside the Dome, a home game, crowd
you have to remember
going crazy.
They were down in Death Valley last year.
Yeah,
did pretty well against them.
So I think that's going to get us over the edge.
We shall see for UNC and Florida State, because this is gauntlet of a schedule here. Brendan, you want to give us your little quick prediction before we get into your trivia and we wrap this thing up?
I told you guys at the beginning of the season I could see Syracuse winning at least one of these next 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
I think this could be the one.
Oh, man. Is that bad, guys? Is that bad if Brendan's
that's
on our
actually
side?
bad juju. I have a horrible feeling in my stomach right now.
The only reason I say this is the one is because it's at home. The next 2 games are both
So
on
you
the
were
road.
James then. You like the home field advantage
The home
here.
field advantage. Think about this, Jonathan. I'll throw out Jonathan White's again. First game back at Clemson, Death Valley, even as the home team, like your first game there, you have nerves. He's going to be in a dome.
Mm-hmm.
Noise doesn't escape a dome.
That is true.
So you know already that however many thousand Syracuse fans in that building are going to be not screaming, shrieking at him to miss every kick or miss-hit every kick that he takes. and all the noise is bouncing off the walls. You have that train whistle thing that happens whenever a good thing happens for Syracuse. Like, it's deafening, and he hasn't played in the
air conditioner's running too as well.
There's an AC running.
AC's running.
Wireless they're working on. What Brendan brings up though is
everything going.
It's the same thing for this whole Clemson team. We saw the false starts that crowd can draw when it comes to this younger defensive line. A few veterans on Clemson, but a few young guys. You also have, again, a quarterback that is a true sophomore.
Yeah.
How is he going to do well against the noise?
And it was different. They played home last year.
They played home.
So now he's going to be inside for the Dome for the first time. That's going to be
the crowd could be.
Good
the
luck.
crowd could genuinely be a difference.
I will
maker.
also throw this out there for you, Tommy.
Yeah.
I've been making jokes about this for the longest time. Syracuse is 1-0 against Clemson at home against a quarterback that wears the number 2.
Okay. All right. that is a Hodges stat through and
you remember his name, right?
I don't want to do this right now.
You remember his name?
I don't want to do this right now. No, because it was a trivia question. I already forget it. And
went back. He transferred to Mizzou.
And then I'm going to be really. Oh my gosh. Kelly Bryant.
There it is.
Still 5 seconds of embarrassment. I'm sure.
As for today's trivia question,
right,
I understand that James is not a football history-loving man, despite the fact he is part of it.
That is true.
Since joining the ACC, Syracuse has beaten 3 FBS programs more than any other in non-conference play. Name one of them.
Okay.
Whoa.
So say that one more time.
Since joining the ACC, Syracuse has beaten 3 FBS programs more than any other in non-conference play. Name one of the 3.
Non-conference play since 2013. Normally, going to be stacked up pretty, and they've beaten, right?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not Notre Dame.
The most wins against. I'm not counting bowl games because it's a crapshoot who you play at the end of the year. So
okay.
No bowl games, solely regular season non-conference play.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I have a few that come to mind.
What are you thinking?
We've played them already. Western Michigan, I know we've played at least twice.
We've also played Purdue at least twice.
Liberty.
Purdue, I don't know if it's gone more than 2 times.
Me neither.
Liberty's at least 2.
Yes.
Army's, I'm thinking, has to be at least 2. Can you think of them playing them in the last 10 years? Actually, no, we just went over this. The last time they played them was...
I think
no, it's been a while.
A long time ago. Like a long time ago.
Well, no, it was I think 96. I did a whole story. I was showing McNabb running the ball.
Yeah,
but that was the last time I was home, so they could have been maybe at West Point, but something tells me I doubt that. So let's slide Army out of there.
So let me ask a question. Is it a New York team? Can you give us a hint?
I'm not telling you anything.
Hold on. I feel like with Purdue, I could be wrong, but I feel like I remember reading that outside of the 2 times where they recently beat them, they only played 1 other time and Purdue blew them out. But that would still mean that Syracuse beat Purdue more times than they didn't. Isn't that the question?
Yes.
I think their record is 2-1 against Purdue.
But this is since they've joined the ACC. So that's my question. I know it was a blowout, but I think
since they joined, the blowout was 50 years ago.
It was
like
Coach
1962.
It wasn't 62. It was 90s. I thought.
They're either.
So you think Purdue?
I think Purdue. What? It's either 2-0 or 2-1.
Give me your answer. You're gonna do that?
Yeah, Purdue. I'm locking it in.
So, is she right?
I don't know. Put your own answers in first.
Well, we want to go with
coward.
Try the elimination one.
I'm really tapping in. I think I'm going Western Michigan.
All right,
you
James.
like Liberty, don't you?
You're the last man up.
He's thinking.
Go Central Michigan.
No,
Liberty would be too easy. So,
but that's also him in your head right now. Remember who you're dealing with.
Right. When you think it's too easy,
it's an evil man. He's thinking about you thinking about it.
I'm saying Colgate.
Saying Colgate. Brendan.
Hodge.
Every team that was mentioned in that discussion is on the list of teams that SU has beaten in non-conference play since joining the ACC.
Right.
But
let's start with James.
Why you gotta start with me?
Because Colgate's not right.
I know that.
The number of times that SU has beaten these teams is 3. They've beaten Colgate twice. See, you're close.
Okay, not bad.
Samantha.
That means you're going to be right.
Purdue also has only lost Syracuse twice since joining the ACC. James actually said one of the teams, Central Michigan.
I should have won with my gut feeling.
I
should have won with it. That was my.
You got his way.
I didn't get in his
Yes,
way.
you did,
you
Tommy.
did.
Yes, you
You
did.
did.
You did.
You
Because I
did. You
was going to do that,
second-guessed
and
him.
you
You're
said,
like, no,
don't
that's-
do that. Yeah.
Whoa. I didn't
persuaded
say
me.
that.
We're going to have to reverse the clip.
I rewind this. Put that 10-second back button and look at my face and tell me I didn't have the most genuine eyes when James said Central Michigan, where I said, I got your back, bro. I said,
Auto turn
I
around
said,
and
I got
everything.
your back. You second guessed yourself. You second guessed yourself. Get his eyes off of me. You second guessed yourself. You had Liberty. It was maybe me saying, "Are you feeling Liberty?" And then you said Central Michigan, and you went back right away.
Can I finish real quickly?
Yeah,
Yes,
fine,
go ahead.
Fine. We'll allow it.
The second team, Syracuse has beaten 3 times since joining the ACC. Connecticut.
The third.
Is there a third?
And to add insult to injury, the third team is indeed the Western Michigan Promise.
Yeah! You need a new celebration, but come on.
Wait, hold on. I'm really bad at this.
Yeah, well,
I don't know
no,
what
this
you
is why you're bad at it. Can I just say one last thing? He's grabbing the arrow from the front. The arrow's in the back.
You grab it from
Go
the
in the
quiver,
back.
bro. Yeah.
Legolas action?
Look at him. He's grabbing the arrow like this. Get a new celebration.
James,
Anyway.
give us a bow and arrow towards Tommy since he ruined your chance to get it right.
I'm going to have Otto look at him.
I'm gonna have Otto.
I don't like his
Otto
eyes
knows
on
what
that.
you've done.
I do not like his eyes
No.
on that. Something about it is like there's something maybe a little bit sinister
Just
going on
stare
with
at
this Otto. He's been around. He's seen a lot. Nextel. He's branded by Nextel. I haven't seen a Nextel.
Is that even
phone.
legal right now?
I don't even think so.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I'm pumped for this game. You know, I know a lot of fans wish it wasn't noon.
Yeah,
and
me.
I get that, James especially, and I respect that. But it is going to be on national TV. They are going to be in the spotlight, and I like to think that Clemson is a big enough draw where that energy is going to be high in the morning. It's not going to have a noon game feel. I don't. I think it's going to have a 3:30 game feel.
Love that. 2 things that we haven't mentioned yet that I think are important, one
Yep.
for each team. Number 1, Syracuse student section doing something awesome that they haven't ever
Yes.
done before. They're going to do a little camp out, but instead of it being, it's going to be a little Babersburg. Is that the name we decided on?
Boeheimburg was the last one.
Okay, so
Also, shout out to the
Babersburg.
Orange Menace. You got to talk to him.
Yes, got to talk to the Orange Menace, so really appreciate everything that they're doing. Their first camp out ever for football, so history being made by the students in that student-run organization, which I think is pretty electric. Secondly, we just didn't really talk about him, but I think he's going to make a difference in this game. Will Shipley, that's a dude I think is the biggest weapon that Clemson has. Just wanted to throw his name out there once. I see you, and you're a former Laxer, and I think that's even cooler.
Yeah, you see her bias.
Yeah, I mean, where the hell did that call come from? Like, all of a sudden, there's just...
I watched a whole YouTube series on Will Shipley. I realized I didn't get to mention him.
Okay.
You don't.
You got to look at Otto now.
Yeah, you got to look at
You
it.
don't ending words. My ending words is this: Syracuse, we're doing what we need. All tongue tied because I'm all excited.
Yeah.
We're doing what we do. Let's keep up the hard work. Be composed. Play hard, and beat that ass.
Right there. Right there. The Orange Zone podcast, he just mic dropped the headphones. And James walking off the set. So we will
We'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks. Peace. Leave a comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Peace.